Hello everyone, welcome to the first episode of this podcast with me, Alex Waplington, and
Ashley Butterworth.
We are two 22-year-old men and we're looking to create a better future for ourselves, and we thought that we'd start this podcast to discuss it, find like-minded people, discuss interesting topics, stuff like that. So I thought that it'd be the most appropriate way to start off with a subject that I think it's probably the most important thing for anyone when you're trying to make something of yourself and of your life, especially if you come from, sort of worse than where we're from. And anyone that's suffered any hardships or comes from countries with economic instability, I think the importance of faith, and this is what the topic is going to be about, having the importance of faith is probably the most important thing that you can have. And me and Ash are basically just going to kind of shoot the shit and discuss faith and how it's impacted us, maybe tell some stories, maybe go into it and hopefully either inspire or evoke some sort of emotion in you and make you think about if you've got enough faith in your life and in yourself. So, yeah, it's about faith, so...
Let's go.
Right, so I think we should kind of maybe start off with a bit of how faith has sort of changed your life. So if you could kind of tell us where you were at and like our history, not fully, but how we've kind of changed over these past few years and how like having faith in a dream has kind of changed us, especially as young men. If you want to get into that a bit, like tell us.
Yeah, let's go. At first I wasn't too sure which faith you're on about, but I guess it's faith as a general.
Yeah, faith, not a religious faith.
Yeah, but just both. But for me, I look at it differently now. I don't know about yourself, but my mum said something to me a while ago, and it kind of changed because obviously I grew up, I used to go to church every Sunday, and I found it so boring. The hours were so long. But then growing up, I stopped going because of football and XYZ. And then my mum said something to me a couple of years ago, and she said, it's good to have a religion or faith. And I was like, where's she going with this? And she goes, people need something to believe in. When you have something to believe in, it's extra motivation, it's extra fuel, it's extra it's an extra place you can go and delve in deep. And then going on to the success aspect, if you don't believe, you'll never will. The human, like I saw this quote, and it was just like, a human mind will never do something it does not believe in. You cannot physically complete an action that you do not believe in completing. So yeah, we're going to work, that's kind of different, but it's in terms of like, say somebody tells you you go and do this, but you don't actually have the faith and you don't believe in it, you'll get bored of it and you'll stop doing it. So it's just that kind of aspect. And yeah, what's your take on faith?
For the people listening, obviously they don't know about us. Like, me and Ash have been friends for like over 10 years at this point, something like that. We met in high school and we always wanted something better for ourselves, but we weren't, I'm not going to say blessed, but we didn't have a specific direction like most people do in today's society. And I'd probably say in human history, there's people who are born to be, things, musicians, writers, doctors, and then there's people, 90% of people are kind of born to be, just kind of exist. And I think, like, so obviously me and Ash, we know what's going on, but like, could you give us a bit of background about where we were at, or where you were at, say 3 or 4 years ago when, COVID had happened and we were 18, 19, we didn't really know what we were going to do. And like, can you give the people a bit of insight into where you were at that time, and like take us back to those days when we wanted to be something, but we didn't even know what we were going to be. We were kind of hopeless in a way. And this is what I want you to go into, these times when we were lacking in faith and like how we felt. Yeah. And I think people will really resonate with like these sort of words.
No, I honestly agree with you there. And it's so 4 years ago is what, COVID. So we just come out of COVID. And the crazy thing is that I've realised is you can't blame everybody for the lack of faith and opportunity. That's the first thing I'll start off with. I'll start by saying society is we're really programmed from the day you're born. You're programmed into a task or a role, and none of it purposeful. And 4 years ago, I was in college, where I'd just finished college because of COVID. I was in lockdown waiting to get my A-level results for some A-levels I never actually wanted to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do. If I'm honest with you, I wanted to be a footballer, and I still do. And I wanted to own my own business, and have have wealth, and I'd have my own free time. I didn't know what it was until recently, this year. But I kind of knew there was more for me than what was being offered on the table, and it was just weird because I just didn't know where to go, what to do, what to look. There was nobody specifically there to guide me. I don't know if that was the same for you.
No, I didn't have anyone. Can you give us kind of an insight into, and people will understand this. I know that, basically everyone I've ever met, I've met a couple of people in my life who knew what they want to do and they did it. Everyone I've ever met is lost, and I think it'd be interesting to kind of hear how you felt in these times, or even when you were at uni and you had, because the thing is, and when for the people, they know what it's like when you wake up every day and you go to uni, especially for the younger people listening. You live this life that you've been told you want to live, but it doesn't maybe fulfill you. And can you sort of give us an insight on your emotional state through these times when you were yearning for something more fulfilling, but you didn't know what it was, and the things that you wanted they just seemed unrealistic. Can you give us a bit of an insight into how you felt on a day to day? Did you ever reach the point of giving up, or some serious thoughts that I think we all struggle with? Can you give us a bit of an insight into that?
So I think if you look at it more of, so you're naive and you don't know what you want, you don't know how to get there, so you kind of deny to yourself at that stage. So it's more of a denial at that stage that this is what I wanted to do with my life. I was still trying hard and revising and studying to be this, to go to Loughborough University and study XYZ, to go on and have a career. And I was lying to myself because that's what I thought society expected of me. And without subconsciously realizing, you in your head you're not happy, and you're doing something that doesn't fulfill you or make you happy, which you don't realize. Then I didn't feel that low then. I felt quite high because you're distracted. When you're distracted, you don't realize. But until recently, across the past 2 years, if I'm more specific, especially this year, when you figure out what you want, you then start to, you become depressed if you're not getting to where you want to get to. So this year I was really depressed for a period of time because I was working, I was putting the work in, and I wasn't seeing the results. And obviously I've been putting the work in for a while, but this is the first few years where I've been putting work in, and it's strategically towards the goals that I want to reach. So then you feel a bit more depression. And in my opinion, when you don't know what you want, you've got a feeling, but you don't know the feeling, you don't recognise. So when you're going home and you're looking on the bus and everybody's like, why didn't you come out? You never do. And you just getting on with life, but you don't know where your life's going. You're just doing what you think you should. You don't feel really purposeful at all. You're just doing stuff for the sake of doing it. But I think the emotional maturity for myself came this year. What I ask for yourself is, what age do you think that you reached the emotional maturity where you recognised and you realised what you're feeling and that lacking feeling that you're describing?
Well, kind of, but I want to answer the question, but I want to ask you more about kind of that, because, and I understand it. I mean, I spent fucking most of my life on autopilot, just kind of existing, and I understand that feeling. And obviously I know that everybody, or nobody that's listening, but eventually everybody will 100% understand that it's a weird feeling. And I want to kind of know your perspective on it, how on the day to day, because for me it was up until sort of last year, I was what am I going to do with my life, man? I feel like I'm destined for great things, but I'm wasting it. Just being a dick, just sitting around, just wasted. I mean, I was 21, 22, 21, and I'm sat there thinking, I'm not good at music right now. I've picked it up at 20, almost 21 years old, trying to be a musician. Am I actually stupid? And like, I want to know, kind of around that time, say like a couple of years ago, say just before you were finishing uni, and sort of this event horizon is like hitting you in the face. You feel like you're being sucked in, and you're finishing uni and you're like, what am I gonna do? Like, what kind of were going through your head at the time? Like, where were you at?
It's a bit of a weird question, especially it's a good question. It's a weird one because I think you've always been able to recognise the way you feel about certain situations a lot quicker than most people. And I remember you did drop out of college, and you said this is not for me for a while. I don't know if you appreciate me saying that, but you did say this is...
The people need to know.
You said this is not for me. You've always said I don't want to go to university, really, is what you've always told me. But you've always kind of known that this is not the path you want, but not necessarily the path that you've not known what path you do want to take, or have not had the confidence to go full throttle and say this is what I want. For myself, again, I was on autopilot. I thought that what I was doing was what I wanted, and I thought that this is the path for me. But until a couple of years ago, like you say, finishing university, and I've come back a different person. I've been reading, I've been studying, and some of the people that I met, to say you have to go out for social events. I'm out for a social event, and I'm thinking, what the fuck am I doing? I'm not where I want to be, and I'm not enjoying it, and I never enjoyed going out as much because my head was always in where I should be. And I'm looking around and I'm thinking, how are all these people not realising you're going out, you're drinking 3-4 times a week, you're not really doing anything with your life? Like, do you not want more? You know what I mean? And it was just a difficult thing, because then now when you're awake, now you're aware. Like, I don't know if you've The Matrix, most people have seen The Matrix. If you haven't, I'd go and have a watch. But he's
Andrew Tate, Mark.
He's woken up. In terms of the movie, he's woken up, and you see around you everybody else is asleep, and they don't realise that what's going on. And I finally started to realise, like, I can make something of my life, and then it transitions into becoming, or trying to become what you think you can be, and it's been a really scary jump. I don't know about yourself. I'd ask you the same question.
Before we kind of go on to how faith can change things, and I don't mean in a religious context, by the way, although I will be quoting some stuff from the Bible, because it's a very good description of a lot of the ways that people feel. But this isn't a religious podcast at all. It's faith in terms of belief in anything.
Yeah.
But before, I want to ask, like, I want to say, do you think, when you say people are asleep and you refer to like this Matrix thing that's become like very popularized by the whole Andrew Tate alpha male thing, and it kind of gets a bad reputation, although I do feel like it has some good stuff. The kind of message is correct, but when you say that, do you think, and I think this is a question for the people that kind of listening to this podcast, do you think that people don't know what they're in, or do you think people don't want to know what they're in? Because I feel like, and especially through COVID, I mean, a lot of people had sort of questions. It was a weird time in my life anyway. I can't say for human history, because I'm sure there's been a lot worse, but it gave people a chance to look at the system and the way that we've been living, and to look at themselves and go, what has happened? Or, say a 60-year-old guy, he can look and he can sit in his house and he's looking back at himself and he's like, wow, this is the first time I've had off in 45 years, and like, do you think for a lot of people, or most people that are living and just working a regular job, because at the end of the day, that is 99% of people, probably more than 99%. Do you think that ignoring what is truly going on, or what is truly possible, do you think that's kind of like a coping mechanism, a way to sort of, well, I guess I want to know your thoughts, because I mean, I know for a fact for me, like when I was kind of at college and stuff, and I was like, what am I going to do, man? All I used to do, I was just like, right, I'll just smoke tons of weed. Gives me something to do, and you don't have to think about your problems. And like, a lot of people have sort of vices, go home and watch TV. Like, do you think people know? Because you kind of referred to this thing about being asleep. Do you think they're asleep, or do you think they're laying with their eyes closed but they're awake and they don't want to know the truth?
I think it's more of the latter. Before, if you'd asked me this question a couple of years ago, I would have said that they're asleep and they don't know, they're not aware. But what I've realised is now that a lot of people, they're aware now, especially after COVID, they're aware what they have to do, but people choose not to do it because, one, they don't have the faith or the belief in themselves that they can achieve it, and two, because they have subconsciously, we are programmed, whether we like to admit it or not, whether whoever likes to tell you it, but every single year millions are spent on marketing just to convince you to buy. Yep. So it's billions to
more
be fair.
than millions.
So in that aspect, you're conditioned slowly, and you have to unlearn and relearn a new life, which is what we both had to do in terms of going out and educating yourself and finding the information. And that's where another element of faith comes in terms of your self-education and understanding and self-belief. The self-belief that we've got is self-belief from information we've gone and found out ourselves. But most people, they don't know more than what's taught in schools. So inherently, they do limit themselves. So they are asleep in that aspect of they're not bothering to go out and find the information. They're taking what's given to them and they're taking them as fact. When I went to university, the first module I did was media power politics, and the first statement was, if you control the media, you control the perception. If you control perception, you control reality. And everything about our lives is controlled by those 4 aspects, those 3-4 aspects. And I just look at it and think, most people, they don't want to realise, even though subconsciously they know what they should be doing, they don't want to do it. They don't have the faith that they can do it because they've been convinced that it's not possible.
Yeah,
but it really is. And obviously not everybody can be successful and wealthy because people give up, people try different vices and different virtues.
But everybody can be, we're not sitting here, this isn't one of these, and I hate these kind of gurus online. Ash prefers more successy sort of content to me. I'm not going to lie, it winds me up a lot of the time because some of it's great, don't get me wrong. Guys like Alex Hormozy, I think, is fantastic. He cuts the bullshit, but a lot of the kind of, be successful, everybody can achieve. That to me, it's like, shut up, man. It sounds like some posh boy stuff. He's never worked a day in his life and he doesn't understand the real world. But Ash is right in the sense that it's everybody can be successful in your own way. Not everybody is going to be fucking Brad Pitt, because that's just not how it works. There's always somebody needs to flip the burger, somebody needs to scan the shopping, somebody needs to do all these things for society to work. But to wake up and to realize that this is your life, man. Like, you've got, as far as we know, whatever me and Ash believe, as you've got one life. Or one life in this body for sure. That's one thing we know for sure.
Yeah.
And if you sat there, and I'm sure a lot of the people that will be listening to this can, probably don't like to hear this stuff, and nobody likes to hear it because we all fall foul to temptation and things that we shouldn't do, and comfort particularly. But it's about and things like this podcast. It's basically all we want to do is, me and Ash just have conversations because we talk about this shit all the time, and I think people can resonate with these sort of messages, and even if you don't necessarily love the message all the time, because these things can be hard to hear, I think it's super important to look at your own life and be like, what do I want for myself? You don't have to be Brad Pitt, you don't have to be Elon Musk, but do you really want to just be the guy, just whatever your name is, James Smith, works a decent office job, and if that really gets you ticking, fair play. We're not here to shit on you. Me and Ash always talk about this, but it's about making you think, how can I be better? Even if you want to work these jobs, how could I be fitter? How could my relationships be better? How could I deal with my emotions better? And this is where having kind of faith comes in, and this is, I want to introduce this idea of faith that we mentioned at the start, because, and I want to start kind of talking about a quote from the Bible, and it's a very famous sort of story about Jesus and the leper. And obviously the leper kind of comes to Jesus and asks Jesus, can you heal me? Can you cure me of leprosy? Which obviously for everyone knowing was a terrible sort of disease. And Jesus says, well, do you believe that I can do it? And the leper says, yeah, of course I believe. You know, you're the Messiah. I've heard all these things. This isn't a quote, by the way. And Jesus says, well, then you're healed. And afterwards, Jesus says something about if you have the faith of a mustard seed could move a mountain. And the reason that he healed the leper, whether the story's true or not, it doesn't matter. It's because, and he says to the leper, it's because you had faith in me. And that is, I mean, that to me, that's one of the most powerful things that I've ever heard in terms of the reason that Jesus, this figure, this deity, did it is because the guy believed he could do it. If the guy didn't believe, he wouldn't have done it. And it's, you know, it's an allegory to kind of tell you that if you really do have faith, even if it's the size of a mustard seed, I mean, you know, in this world, anything really is possible. We don't know. You know, people tell us things are impossible. I don't have a clue. And I kind of want to explore this idea of how, like, having faith and this kind of blind faith can actually change your life. And, you know, it's a hard pill for people to swallow, especially if you've kind of been depressed your whole life, like me and you were. And, like, can you kind of go into, like, how your relationship with faith, I don't mean like religion, I mean how you came to this idea that I need to have, it's a different thing to belief, having faith that it will work out. Like, how did you sort of come to this conclusion? Like, tell us a bit about that, the journey with faith, and how you kind of arrived at this conclusion that, you know, well, of faith.
It's quite interesting, and it's a very good perspective, and I really enjoy the question. For me, faith, where I'm at now, and the self-belief, if you told me 3 years ago, I wouldn't have believed you. But what I will tell you is that Bible quote really links to a quote that I really, really, really enjoy, and it comes to this. And you told me, Alex, and it was, there's two men. One believes he can, and one believes he can't, and they're both right. And honestly, the power in that quote just speaks volumes, because I saw something. It was like, the only way you can guarantee success is if you try, or happiness if you try and if you look for it. But if you don't look for it, there's only one thing you'll guarantee, is that you won't find it. So it just comes down to faith, the same thing. You've got to believe in yourself, and you've got to believe that you can. And I've got that from a lot of things, but mainly it comes down to going out and doing stuff, building evidence. So I have this thing, and I got it from Alex Hormozy, and it's build evidence, not...
Big up Alex Hormozy, by the way.
He's so good.
He's the guy.
And he says build evidence, not confidence. Because confidence is kind of an emotion, it's fleeting. But evidence shows that you've done it, you can do it again. So when you believe evidence, you start to build your faith. And faith's very broad and it's very general. But what we're probably referring to here is self-belief.
Well, this is why I wanted to do this topic, because I wanted to... And by the way, for people listening, I surprised Ash with this. I didn't tell him. And I kind of like this format. I kind of like springing it on him. I only thought the idea like 20 minutes before I got here. I kind of want... that's why I use such a broad topic, because I thought for a start it's probably the most important thing you need to have to achieve anything. You know, if you want to cook a steak, you've got to believe that you know how to cook a steak, or believe that you'll know how to figure it out. The simplest thing on earth, or believe you know how to put your socks on. So that's why I kind of wanted it to be broad, like when I say faith.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like, can you kind of tell us, like, was there a point that you got to where you were like, was there an ultimate moment, a sort of road to Damascus that you had where you were like, right, holy shit? Or was it a slow kind of, like a build up over time? Because me and you are very different.
Yeah.
Like, we really are. And I'm, like, Ash is he loves the guys like Hormozy and stuff like that, very pragmatic. I'm a bit of a different sort of mind. I kind of like to work off like the creative mind, which is much more like, I like to be more spontaneous, that kind of stuff. And that's kind of where me and Ash like differ. But it's good because we can bounce off each other. But I kind of want to hear like just your perspective. Like, was there a moment, or how did it come about? How did you get to this sort of point where you're like, right, this is what I'm going to fucking do, and it just is. I'm going to either do it or I'm going to die doing it.
It's a weird one because, as you say, for me, it wasn't just an abrupt thing. I think it's something that's been coming for a long, long time, and it's been brewing up. So I played football for ages, and I've always been told you're good, you're this, you're that. But I never really got into the academies. You always go to the trials. You're good, you're raw, but you're not quite there yet. All that kind of stuff. And then you go to the Sunday level, and you're really good for that level, but you're not good enough for the next level. And then you're playing Sunday League at 17, and you don't believe you can do anything to where I am now, playing semi-professional, making a bit of cash from it. It was a gradual progress, and it was, I don't know about yourself, but for me, it built up through, I was doing things, and then when I did that thing and you get a positive outcome, it's reinforced, and you try and do it again, and then you build a bit more confidence, then you have a bit more faith in yourself, and you just keep building it up to the point where you're so motivated, so everybody that watches those, millions of people watch those motivational videos every day, but there's a transition that you have to make, and I think I made the transition where it's from, okay, right, so now I'm motivated, okay, you don't have to worry about the motivation anymore, so now it's about the process and getting to where you want to get to, and it just gradually happened, and it's been building upon and just been doing more. So when you fall, I've been trying to you pick yourself up again, you go again, you have the belief. So just to clarify, for myself, faith, I associate faith with self-belief, with confidence, with perseverance, with indefatigability, the inability to be to not be fatigued, and I think all those are linked intrinsically and extrinsically, and it's just one of those things where for me it's built up to where I'm at now, where I have confidence in my ability to do it, and I'm just doing, and even when I don't get the results, I have to keep going because I don't have a choice. I realised that whether you like it or not, one day we'll not be on this planet in the form that we're in now, and it will be and this is what I mean, it'll be too late, and whether you complete it or not, nobody will care. But most important thing for myself is I've been given these talents, and I've put all this work in across the past decade, I'd say, and it'd be such a shame. And it comes back to you're on a road, and you're in the midway point. Turning around and quitting is going to be the same distance as going all the way to the end. So you might as well go to the fucking end. So for you, I want to know, what does faith mean to you? And when did you realise that what you're doing now, or have you considered that the things that you want to do, when was the point you had that realisation that this is what you want to do, or have you not had that point yet?
It's a good question, and I don't know how I've asked you the question and not knowing what the answer is, but I guess like for me, for a start, it's something I still struggle with, and like I have really recently, I sort of went through a period where I was like, man, I don't know if I can fucking. By the way, I'm trying to be a musician. Ash is a footballer, and he also is running a clothing brand. So like for me, it was like, well, music. I was just like, man. Because I started super late, I started at 20, playing the guitar for the first time at almost 20. Played a bit of guitar when I was a kid, but never anything good, and so I was like, I guess that was kind of the point where I was actually delusional enough to be like, I can do this, but I knew I had a talent because I was getting better at such a rapid rate, and I'm only like 3 years in, a couple of years in writing songs. And I just knew, I'd hear other people's songs that I'd been writing for 10 years, 8 years, and I'd be like, mine are so much better. And I had this sort of weird, I guess some of it was the weed in that way, that you become somewhat delusional and disconnected from reality, and you actually, you think you can achieve things that you probably can't. But then I mean, I've stopped smoking and stuff now, and it's got to the point now where I'm like, well, I actually can do this shit now. Like, after all those years of me waking up, going to college or whatever it was, or working jobs, which I did for a long time, because I didn't go to uni when all my friends did. Well, I'll say all my friends, Ash, because we're from Wakefield and not particularly many people go to uni here, really. But I guess I was like, the point where I kind of realised, fuck, was when I stopped smoking weed. So a year ago, around a year and a few months ago. And I was just kind of like, I had this sort of big like panic attack, and it made me super conscious of my health, and I started going to therapy and stuff, and I started to wonder, like, where does this health anxiety come from? And I was actually listening to meditations when I were in the gym at Marcus Aurelius's. It's not a book, it's a collection of notes, and he said, I can't remember the direct quote, but it was something about a man who's 20 and a man who's 70. Both of them are the same age in a way, because all they have is right now, and when they're dead, all they have is death. And it was like, I don't know, that's not a direct quote, by the way. I absolutely messed that up, so it sounds shit, but I'll try and insert the quote on the screen, because that sounded absolutely terrible. But it was basically about, the point is, you think you've got all this time, or you think that, when you're dead, oh, it's so far away. It's like, it's really not. And I sort of figured out where I was having all this health anxiety from, and it's because I was living like, well, not the way I wanted to live. I was scared of dying because I was scared, and I'm still scared of it, because I'm not living the way that I want to live. I'm not achieving the things I want to achieve. And I think for a lot of people, people listening, I'm imagining they'll kind of be young, 30s and under sort of thing, but we're not discriminating at anyone.
Yeah.
It don't matter if you're 60, as long as you've got your health.
Yeah.
There's always a chance to turn things around. But like for me, I guess that, and then like my mum had cancer a year before that, and kind of thinking about all these things, and it was like, man, I really am going to be dead one day. And also being, the health isn't even promised. I was 22 or 21 at that time. It was like, you think you're invincible. You really do. I was eating terribly, smoking loads of weed, not exercising, and you get to this point. I kind of had like a bit of an epiphany point, which was kind of weird. No, I wouldn't say I don't imagine that most people would kind of have that point, but maybe I think a lot of people that kind of suffer from like things like substance abuse or other things of that kind of nature, I think a lot of people kind of do have an epiphany point where they're like, this can't go on. And so I suppose faith, like, to me, is, the way I look at it is like, man, I'm here now. I said I was going to do this music thing. It makes me feel shit every day because I'm not achieving the stuff, or I'm not as good as I want to be, or I'm not as good as that guy, or I'm not as young as that guy and doing as well as that guy on TikTok or whatever. But, I said I was going to do this. No one forced me to do it. I could have gone to uni, I could have studied and been had a decent career in whatever. But I chose this for myself. So I've got to suffer the consequences. And like having faith for me, it kind of means, fuck it. Like, I chose this shit, and it's just, I've got to just do it. I can't take no for an answer at this point. I mean, I'm 3 years in. Like, what would I do? Turn around and stop now? Well, I mean, I'm 22 years old. I'm still a really young man. Why would I give up? Why would I not? Why would you not have faith in yourself? Why would you not believe in yourself? There's people a lot less talented than us or you listening that have made a lot of money or had a lot of success and achieved everything they wanted to achieve in life. And it's not all about money. But trust me, there's a guy out there he couldn't lace your shoes. He's probably an idiot. and he's out there living the life.
Because he had the balls to do it. So the question I want to ask you is in terms of you said about your life. Do you ever feel like you were chosen? Because for me myself, I'm at the point now where I think I'm chosen. It's got to the point where I look at everyone else and they don't see what I see about society. They don't see the gaps and the opportunity to be something. So that's the first point I want to touch on is do you feel to a point now, so you got to a point where you've gone past you being uncomfortable, not wanting to do this, you had the epiphany, now do you feel like, you know what, maybe I was chosen to be this person and to be in this position and to have these set of skills that I've got?
Well, yeah, basically, and I do feel like I was chosen. I really, really do, and I always did. And maybe, I mean, people could say it's like, something wrong with me. I've got schizophrenia or whatever, and it'd probably be a reasonably fair assessment. But the thing is, I think, and you'll find this with a lot of really successful people, and especially in sort of the field that I'm in, they tend to think that they're a genius. People like John Lennon, they tend to be they think they're an absolute icon, but they also are super insecure at the same time. And I always felt as a kid like, I'm different to these kids. And maybe it was sometimes not even justified, but I always just felt like I used to think it was weird. But as you get older, you kind of go, wow, I can look at society for what it is and actually see what's going on. And I don't know who it was. I'm kind of these days leaning towards like Jesus, and I hope that it was him that blessed me. But I don't know. I can't tell you that these things are true, But even if it were just the universe, I definitely feel like, well, whatever is special about me, I'm destined for more than just the sort of average life that most people I know, all people I know, really. I can't really name any. You want something different, and that's it. You're the only guy I know that actually wants something different.
Yeah, I've got you and Michael. Shout out Michael.
Big up Mike.
He's very much the same with us, and if he was here, he'd be on the podcast as well.
We'll get him on one of these days.
We'll get him on there. But what I will say is that, going back to the death thing before I answer the chosen one, Alex is right in the epiphany about the death, and what I realised ages ago is when you die, people forget about you. And maybe this is just me being egotistical, but they do forget about you quickly.
So quickly. And you won't believe how quick it is.
And I just thought to my head, think about how many people in society, you can't even name them, that lived and nobody will ever fucking know who they are. And I'm just thinking, and I'm looking, and I've got such a particular set of skills, and so has Alex, where you're thinking, there's no way that I should die and not share my information. And it links back to A-level English literature, and I fucking hated it. And I hated that lesson. Yeah, and I hated it so much. But John Keats wrote a poem, and along the lines of paraphrasing, and he wrote, "If I should die before this pen touches this teeming brain." And he was writing about his I think it's called I Have Fears. So it was like, I have fears that I may cease to be before this pen touches this teeming brain. And he was scared that he'd die before he could give the world all that he had to offer. And I just thought, and I saw that quote, and I thought it was really profound.
If I'm correct, I think he did die.
He died at 26.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's one of those ones where it's a really profound quote, and it did make me realise. It made me realise, what the hell? And I have been scared recently that when I'm doing something, so before I complete it, before I get a result, before I get a sample, before I have the match, if something happens to me, the world will not realise or have the information that I have to offer. I'm not saying that I'm the smartest person in the world, and I know you're not saying the same thing either, Alex.
We're idiots. Trust me, we're the first to tell you that.
But when you think about it, each person, there'll only ever be one Alex Waplington with your genetic level,
sure.
the structure of your genes, your DNA, your personality, your experiences, your situations. There'll only be one you. There'll never be another one of you or myself. And I realised that's a niche within itself, And the development we've done over the past few years, there's information that we can contribute to the world in a positive way, and we can do our part for the world. And I've always feared death, because I've always feared that if I don't contribute this, or if I die before doing this, that's what scares me. But if I get to a point where I've contributed what I know to the world, and what I know to be true, and what I know that people need, and say something happened to me, I wouldn't. The fear goes away when you commit, when you do an action, when you complete something. The fear goes away because you've done it. You know, if you know what I'm saying, it's a weird way to describe it. But a lot of people, and for myself as well, I don't know about you, Alex, but I was scared of death because. And the reason you're scared of death is fear of missing something. And why do you miss something? Because there's something you haven't done yet. So if you get to a point where you can do as many things as possible, you start to fear death a little more. And I've started to fear death a little less now. Because I've been doing the things that I know I can do and capable, and putting myself out there and taking those risks. But if you don't take no risks and you don't do anything, you'll end up fearing death even more. And it comes back to the Jordan Peterson and Chris Williamson podcast, and I honestly, those two they're geniuses. And
for the record, Jordan Peterson gets a bad reputation these days. We're not sitting here and talking about his politics. I couldn't give a fuck about politics. And if you're interested in politics in terms of you're a tribalist, you need to sort your head out, because you're batting for a team that you don't even play for.
Yeah,
we're talking about. In terms of, he's a psychologist.
Yes, in terms of his psychological
he knows
stuff.
his fucking stuff.
So the first thing he said in that podcast, I think it's episode 12 with Chris Williamson. I can't remember what season 7, I think.
Chris Williamson.
And he said, you're morally obligated to achieve great things in life. And I thought that was phenomenal. And he said that just the whole point that you have something to offer the world that nobody else can offer it. So why not offer the world it? And I just thought that was incredible. And along with the fear of death, and he also, something else that links with the fear of death, he said that about the delusion. He said you felt delusional and XYZ, and he spoke about delusion versus a fantasy, and described delusion as you want something, but you don't do anything about it. You don't put the work in, you don't put any effort in, so then you expect the outcome. You're delusional. But if you put the work in and you still aspire for that same level, it's more of a fantasy, because it's achievable, it's attainable, you're on your way there. And I just don't think all that is very interlinked, and it is a big subject. We'd be here all day if we were going to go into all the intricacies. But it's just I just wanted to touch upon the death and the delusion comment that you said. I just thought that was interesting. I thought it's something that I've studied recently. Yeah. And I just thought, not bad, not a point I had there to say.
No, to be fair, I didn't even know that. And I think that's interesting, and I can say for sure, like, you brought up John Keats. That was his name, wasn't it? John.
Yeah, John Keats, yeah.
See, I'm not that smart. And well, my favourite poet, I mean, I don't mind Keats, but my favourite poet is actually a guy who was obsessed with Keats. My favourite poet's Wilfred Owen. Yeah. And he was the same, died at, I think he was 25, killed in World War One. And these guys, and a lot of my heroes tended to have died young. People, John Lennon's a massive hero of mine. Classical composers like Mozart, a lot of them didn't live. I think Mozart was like 34. And there tends to be some sort of weird kind of link with geniuses. Tend to, not all of them, a lot of them live long, but there seems to be some sort of weird kind of connection between a lot of geniuses who die before the time, and I think that kind of is the fear, and that's natural. At the end of the day, we sit here all the time, and me and Ash talk shit or whatever, and we think we're intelligent. We're literally monkeys sat in a car doing a podcast, hairless monkeys, on crazy. A planet, and we don't know what the fuck's going on, man. And this is the thing, it's this is why we all humans, and I'm sure you listening to this podcast, we all pretend like we know what's going on. And I think accepting that you don't know, and that all you can control is, I'm John Smith. All I can do is, I'm a I'm a assistant clerk at a fucking solicitor's, lawyers for Americans. All you can do is work your ass off at the job, take care of yourself in terms of your personal life, work on your emotions, work on your health, your physical health, which is the most important thing, by the way. If your vessel's broken, good luck. The richest man in the world would trade everything he has for what I've got right now because he's not 22 and fit as a fiddle, even though I've got a gut. But this is the thing. Like, and that whole Jordan Peterson thing that you were referring to, like, I was watching Hormozy put out the other day. It was that video that I sent you. Like, what were it? Ruthless advice for men in the 20s or something like that. Great video. And he were talking about, and he said something he really is. You don't like to admit that other guys are really intelligent. They've achieved a lot. That guy, he knows his shit. It doesn't matter if you don't like self-help kind of guru shite. I understand that. He's not like that at all. He really knows his stuff and he gets straight to the point. And he was saying, your body, yourself, is the only asset that you have. And you have it for the longest time. So invest in it. Invest in these things. Invest in knowledge. Invest in skills. Especially if you're our age, if you're 22, whatever. Or, it don't matter if you're older, but it changes things when you get older because you don't have as much time. But when you're our age, me and Ash are 22, almost 23.
You sooner than me.
Yeah, yeah.
Still a few more months.
Yeah. You took me off my track, you dick. Yeah, so when you're young, you know nothing. Like, me and Ash sit here, I think I'm an intelligent guy. I'm not. I'm a dickhead. Ash probably thinks he's intelligent. He's not. He's a dickhead. And, like, so we're useless at this age. You trade these things in. You trade your uselessness in for your energy. So you've got all this energy, you've got all this time when you're young. When you're 50, 60, you're not going to have this time to sit and learn these skills. Whatever skill it is, don't matter whether it's the gym or whether it's, kickboxing or football or, anything. You want to be a YouTuber, whatever you want to do. You won't have this time when you're 60 to sit down and constantly learn how the game goes, spend hours every night. I've spent years every night just sat playing guitar for a couple of hours each night, a few hours, sometimes 5, 6, 7 hours, 8 hours. When I was 19 and all I had to do was come back from college and I could play guitar for 7 hours straight, it's, when are you ever going to get that chance to do that again?
You'll never be as young as you are at this moment.
And
right
even
now,
like, things have changed. Obviously, I was working whilst you were at uni, and it changed sort of the dynamic. But I had all this time when I were at college. Come home and I had literally nothing to do. I'd have to find things to do because I had nothing, and I didn't really have many sort of hobbies besides sitting and smoking weed and watching TV. So it was like. But now it's like, well, I've got things to do. If I've got free time, pick up a shift at work. If I've got an hour spare, I'll go kickboxing. It's like them sort of hours. You get an hour there, an hour here, an hour there. Go train for Ash. An hour to play some music before my work starts.
Yeah.
You don't get those 8 hours, like I used to get when I'd come back from college at 5 o'clock, sit in my bedroom until 1 a.m. literally just playing guitar over and over again, writing songs for hours on end. And I think, if you are kind of younger, I think it's something for people to kind of think about because, well, trust me, I mean, when I was 19, 20, I thought I had years. I thought, wow, 22, that's years away. It's not, man. You think it is.
Yeah.
Bro, it goes so quick. I can't even tell you.
Yeah.
We left school when we were 16. Obviously, Americans won't understand that. You do in England. You leave at 16. And it feels like 2 years ago. It's like 6 years ago, almost 7 years ago.
Yeah, crazy.
It's and the people that are listening to this pod that are older will understand. For a good example, and I'll kind of let Ash take the reins. I don't want to seem like a dick, but I want to kind of introduce the idea. And it's kind of a heated topic these days, especially in England. People seem to hate them everywhere they go. But Ash's mum, he's an immigrant from Uganda, came here when he was a little baby, and his mum obviously brought him over. And and this links back to that idea of faith. And if you've ever heard Joe Rogan's podcast with Francis Ngannou, I would imagine it's quite a similar story. But that is ultimate faith. It's faith because you've got nothing else. It's faith when that truly is that kind of faith, like Jesus and the leper, when the man he's putting all of his belief in Jesus. And if you could kind of share a bit of, like, obviously none of the dodgy details, but if you could kind of share a bit of, like, your mum's sort of story and how she got over it, because I think it's quite interesting for people. It's a real world example that we can use when faith can really help you achieve things that you want to achieve, even if, I mean, it seems impossible. And it is. Things can actually be impossible and you can still achieve them.
So I think my story is very special in terms of my mum.
Big up on that.
Yeah, and everything I do, I have her in the back of my mind that she deserves this, because she said to me, and this is the crazy part, is so we're here and we're thinking big, and we want big in life because we can achieve it. We're in a first world country, which I know you don't reference it like that anymore, but we're in a very developed country.
Yeah, man.
One of the biggest nations in the entire world.
We're in the best country in the world. I'm sorry, Americans, but it doesn't get better than England. It just doesn't.
And it's just in terms of, she said to me, she sat me down a few years ago and she said I had 3 goals: have all my kids here, have them all educated, because the education in Uganda you pay for, it's not on the same level, and then to have them all driving cars with jobs. And I just look at that now and I think that's kind of incredible, because it's like the things that we take for granted at times, a job, a driver's license, to be here, free education, is what my mum dreamed for us to have here. And she came here alone, and she left us there, and then she made money, sent it back, and then she got us here. And it really, really, really pays testament. She had faith that she could come over here and she could bring us all. And regardless of all the struggles, she brought us, and we just live in a life that you couldn't have imagined when you're back there. People back there can't even imagine what we've got here. And when you go back, you look back and you think, you start to realise how lucky you have it. And it all because my mum took a risk. She left everything behind.
But this is the thing about, and sorry to interrupt you, when we talk about faith is, because, and this is why I made it such an open topic, so we could just chat shit, but his mum had no choice. It was not like, oh, I'm going to go to England because I want to go see the fucking Big Ben, like tourists do. She came here because otherwise, the next meal might not be there. The next so-and-so might not be there. Obviously, I don't know Ash's mum's story, but I understand the way that, if you live in a first world country, you're so naive. You really are. And this is me included. Trust me, sometimes I go home and I sit on my sofa watching 90 Day Fiancé and I'm like, man, I hate this life. I'm sat with a fucking cup of tea in hand and all the food I want, and you're sat there going, man, this is shit. I've got work tomorrow. It's like, bro, trust me, and people do. There is guys in these third world countries that would kill, and they do kill, for even a chance at a third of the life that you get to live.
That guy that has got into the stowaway in Kenya of the aeroplane, and then obviously because of the altitude he froze to death.
Oh yeah,
and he landed in somebody's garden in London, and it's those kind of things. And when I was in college, I won't put a name, but you'll know the boy. We played football with him briefly. His dad, I remember I was working at a waiter at a restaurant, and I was like, this pay's not enough. I need to find another job. So I found another job, and for a while I was working 2 jobs at once for a couple of months in college. It was a Saturday and Sunday. And I remember one Saturday I was working 5 a.m. start, finished at 1 at Morrison's warehouse. And he was there with the agency. And then I went home and I was like, okay, you know what I mean? I was trying to get money for clothes and stuff. And in the evening, he was the pot washer at the waitery job starting at 4 as well. So 3 hours rest, back again. And I remember that those couple of weeks, months I was doing that, I was so tired. And this was his day, and I was doing it only on the weekends. This was his day every single day. And he had to feed, a family he had to feed, yeah? Just come to this country, had a family he had to feed. He hasn't got the education or anything to be doing the high-end jobs and everything like that. And he was doing those jobs, and when I was in Morrison's, it was mostly immigrants. It was most people that have come over. There wasn't many English people. They don't want to do those jobs. They think the jobs are below them. And I was there. I can testify I was there. And honestly, you start to realise and you start to think how hard people actually have it. And it goes back to that quote that you said to me, where if there was a fire where everybody could bring their problems in a pile that you'd put down, you'd take yours home with you if you saw everyone else's. And honestly, just that woke me up in terms of, like, damn, I'm fucking lucky. This guy's working like this for his family, and it's like my mum had to put in similar work.
And millions of people. And let me just, for the people listening, let me repeat that quote for you, because for me, it's so powerful. And I actually got it from Kamaru Usman, the UFC fighter, former welterweight champ. Shout out Kamaru. His mum told him, obviously, he comes from Nigerian immigrants as well, and a lot of that kind of wisdom about being broke and being truly desperate you will get from parents who came from, third world, whether the third world is politically correct, I don't know, you can't say shit anymore, but Kamaru Usman's mum said it to him, and she said, if every man could throw his problems into a pile, you'd be happy to take yours home. And it is so true, man. It is so fucking true. I'm sat there going, oh man, I can't be a musician. It's too hard. Right, I'm lucky that these guys in Africa don't have access to a fucking guitar and can't write tunes for a living. Because if I were competing with them, with the work ethic that they've got, man, I'd be fucked.
Yeah.
Because they understand the true value of a dollar. Obviously, we live in England, but me, we don't come from, for the record, me and Ash don't come from wealthy backgrounds, come from working class family, but we've always had food on the table, shelter. Yeah. If I needed anything, it'd get done most of the time. These guys, I'm sure a lot of people listening have worked in factories or warehouses, whatever, and you've worked with guys, usually guys from Africa, but not exclusively. And I remember in COVID, I worked at a food packing warehouse, and I worked with this one guy, an African guy. Didn't speak much English, but we kind of communicated. He were a sound guy, and he worked like a fucking dog, man. I've never seen out like it in my life. He worked. I mean, I were waking up 5 a.m. whatever it was, doing a 12-hour shift and going home. I'm fucking knackered. It's like 3 p.m. in the afternoon, something like that. 4 p.m., something like that, I don't know. This guy's doing that every day for the rest of his life until he can't work anymore. I did it for a week and quit because I was like, man, this is too hard. For the money I'm getting, fuck this. I'd rather just stay at home and not get paid anything because I have that luxury. These guys, they're working 12-hour shifts every single day, and most of them are picking up a second job because these jobs, warehouses tend to finish around 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And that's a different kind of faith. That's like it's almost, I guess it's not really faith, but it kind of is a weird kind of faith where it's like, and this is where being kind of a parent changes you, and one thing that I guess maybe we'll learn, but we'll never have the same edge as these guys that have been through it. But like, that guy's waking up every morning. Do you think he's not fucking tired? Of course he is. He probably feels like shit, but he knows that he's got 3 kids to feed, he's got a wife to feed, they've got to go in school, they've got to go, school trips or whatever. If he's got teenage kids, they want a car. Man, at the end of the day, they aren't asking how you got the money, they're asking where's the money.
Yeah.
And you have to provide it. And so these guys are literally working themselves to death. And if you've got, and we're not just going to sit here and talk about guys who've got it harder, because I understand everything's relative. But I kind of wanted to, we'll do a bit more. Yeah. So I just wanted to like put it in perspective a bit, but it don't mean, for the record, this don't mean you can't have your own problems, because at the end of the day we're humans and everything's relative. You know, you can't compare yourself. You can try compare yourself. Well, not compare yourself, but you can try keep in mind these people that truly have nothing, and that's what me and Ash try and do. I recommended by my therapist, but to be fair to Ash, he did say I should do it years ago. I do a little journal every night of just like how the day's gone, if I've been like high anxiety, that sort of stuff, and at the end of it, I do like a grateful, just what I'm grateful for, just a few things, a few lines, and start with, you know, I'm grateful for things that I've learned, I'm grateful for God, grateful for my health, family's health, and then so and so on. And a lot of the times I write stuff like, you know, if I interact with homeless guys, which I tend to quite often because I really feel for them, I usually write that down, and usually those days it's like I'm grateful to even have a house, you know, food in my belly, a TV, you know, shit like that, man. It's like, you think they've got a fucking TV in like the favelas in Rio, man. They'd be buzzing with a TV that I've got. Mine's 10 years old. I'm telling my mum this TV's shit because it don't have it's not a smart TV.
Yeah.
If I gave that to a guy in Rio, bro, or a guy in Kampala where Ash is from, they'd be, bro, smart. The TV that I've got, it's like 50-something inch. It'd fucking blow the mind.
We send loads of old technology back, and they can't believe it.
Yeah, exactly, bro.
They can't believe it. They're so gassed. Old phone, and they send it back there. They're still about 10 years behind in terms of all that kind of stuff. And honestly, I think the impact you make on the world is really important, and that all comes down to how you see the world, and how you see the world is how you view situations like this, and how you realise in your ability to acknowledge that you're in a fortunate position. And obviously I complain all the time that I'm doing 9 to 5 and XYZ, and I want to have my success, when I have everything like that, which is fine. And obviously I'm trying to be even more grateful than I am usually.
For sure.
But it's into perspective.
It's a practice, though, isn't it? That's like one thing you should take away, like from what, and I don't know what you're trying to say exactly, but I think like it really is a practice. Having gratitude, and there's a great thing in the Bible where Jesus says, I can't remember the exact quote, but it's something about those who are merciful will be shown mercy.
Yeah.
And that is, you know, if it's not about sitting down and praying for everyone who's got it tough in the world, because at that sort of level you can't really change anything. It's about, when you can, helping people who need help, or just showing mercy on people, even just like what Ash said, just thinking about people who have it worse. And it's, I think for Ash it's not easier, but it's easier to kind of be reminded of it daily, because obviously his mum, and he comes from Africa, he's connected to this world still, and he has family back there that still live in well, I'm not going to say it's the worst place in the world, because it's not. There's worse places.
It's very deprived,
but it is, and a lot of people there have absolutely nothing. They really have like nothing. You know, you guys, me, I'm sat here, I've got a job, and I'm like, fuck this job.
Yeah.
Them guys, man, they would, if you put me and them in a ring and said whoever walks out gets the job, they'd kill me. They're willing to actually like
go to the end of the
these
earth.
Guys have nothing to lose. Whereas, and this is where you can bring it to your life. You know, look at me and Ash, couple of dickheads. You at home listening to this, you're looking at yourself and you're like, well, what do I really have to lose? I've got this job and I get paid decent. What is the actual worst thing that could happen? It's not like you're going to end up like some of these guys back in Uganda where you ain't got anything. You're not going to lose. You might have to move back into your mum's if you're older, or if you're lucky like us and still kind of young, still live at your parents'. My mum's not going to kick me out. You know, what's the worst that happened? I quit my job, try do music, get a job again. Yeah. And I'm back in the same position. Like when I say these guys have nothing to lose, in terms of they have nothing to lose and everything to gain, you have the exact same thing, but you really do have nothing to lose, because you're not going to die. 99% of you are not going to end up on the street. And so what is the point in not having faith? You know, if a guy who has nothing has more faith than you, then there's you know, you need to work on it. Because if a guy who's got nothing in Africa sat fucking starving because he don't know where he's going to get the next meal from, and he has more faith that things are going to work out than you when you've got everything you need to make things happen. Come on, man. You know, and it's this, I'm not saying it's just you. We all suffer from these sort of thoughts. But it's something you need to work on. And I need to work on. Ash needs to work on.
Of course.
Because, trust me, man, there's someone out there who is dying to be in the position that you're in. And if you're not careful, well, one day your dreams might end up just being dreams forever.
Yeah.
And you know, like what Ash referenced earlier, the whole John Keats thing, you can sit and plan. And he said to me the other day, because I was feeling a bit depressed about music and stuff, I did this gig and I just felt a bit down after the gig, I think because I was so nervous. And he was just like, well, you know, if you don't, what happens if, because I said, you know, I need a few more years to get better, which I feel like I do. But then he said, well, what if you're dead? And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, it is a fair point, because I actually don't know, and I don't know if Ashley's gonna make it home. I don't know if I'm gonna make it home.
Well, I hope I fucking make it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather he didn't if I had the choice.
Yeah.
But like, it's crazy. Like, you sit here and go, yeah. Me and Ash do it all the time, bro. When we're 26, we're gonna be in a Ferrari and all this shit. It's like, bro, I could be in that Ferrari and then drive it down the hill and crash and die. It's like you have no idea. Or I could die tomorrow, and all the people listening could die.
Yeah.
So,
tomorrow's not guaranteed.
No.
Tomorrow's not guaranteed, and it's just in terms of making the most out of your life and maximising your potential, which is the most important aspect of just life in general. Like that David Goggins quote about when you go to heaven, if you believe in heaven, and they read out what you could have been and you weren't him. And it's another quote I heard recently where it's just like, on your deathbed, the ghosts around you will be the ghosts of the things that you could have brought to life, but you didn't. So now they have to go with you, and you have to die with you. And how many people on the planet do you think have gone to the grave and not used their talents and not used their potential to be what they could be, which is the most important part. You have to be the best version of yourself, transcend. You have to release your energy and become whatever you can become. And I think that's just the most important aspect of life, and it all links to having faith and believing in yourself, because everything starts with belief. If you don't believe you can do something, you'll never do it. So that's just the truth about it, and there's nothing to beat around the bush with that.
Right, 100%. And as we kind of sort of bring this to a close, I think, like, you know, I'm sure there's people probably that would listen to this and probably go, well, it's just a load of shit, which is a fair assessment. But I would argue to the people that are not necessarily that they think this is a load of shit, but maybe they look at this and go, yeah, it sounds good, but it sounds to me like another, you know, Chris Williamson or Hall Mosey or Tate or, you know, all these guys, David Goggins, Jordan Peterson, one of these self-help gurus. I don't want to hear it. I'd say fair enough, but I'd also say, why are you so repelled from this? What is it that's repelling you? And I think you probably know that the answer is that you don't want to know the truth.
And you don't put enough effort in.
And it's okay. You know, it's okay to be at that point. It really is, like, but that's the thing, and I think it's Goggins that says it. There's no shame in, you know, for example, if you just use the body, there's no shame in being fat, but there's shame in being unhappy with your situation and not changing it.
Yeah, powerful.
And it's so true. You know, at the end of the day, if you're sat looking at yourself and going, man, I want more for myself, and then all you do is sit and watch fucking Game of Thrones, man, you know, you need a reality check, and you need to understand that this shit, you know, I promise you, I'm only 22, man. I feel like I've aged 20 years in the past few years.
Yeah.
just from the sort of perspective that I've gained and the things that me and Ash have seen.
Yeah.
Like, just think about it. And obviously we'll be back probably in sort of the next week or maybe less with another episode and another topic based around sort of similar things. But just keep it in mind, and you know, if you're not happy with your situation, just do anything. Just one small step. Well, I'm not going to quote Neil Armstrong there, but one small step in the right direction is better than one in the wrong direction, or none at all. So, like, can you give us some kind of
what Alex means, and how I'll end it is, it's like life is a bit of a fog. There's no doubt about that. Life's a fog. It's very unclear what you're meant to do, whether you're meant to fulfill your purpose, whether you even matter to the universe or not, or whatever you believe. Life is still a fog. It's still something you have to figure your way out yourself, and you never really will sometimes. But if you take a step, and you take a step closer, you're a step closer to seeing what you really have to see. But if you stand where you are and you die where you are, what kind of life is it that you'll live? You'll live a life of where you limited yourself and you didn't really achieve anything, you really didn't do anything, and I don't see the point in that. And if you want to live like that way and you don't really agree with what we do, what we say, you go out and find your own way. I'll say that. But you'll end up back, whether it's with us, whether it's someone else, and you'll realise that we were telling the truth. And because we've been through it and we're speaking on experience, we're telling you this when we haven't got money yet. When we haven't got our money yet. Yeah. We're telling you this early. These are the lessons we've learned. It's not something we're not charging. We don't want any money for it and anything. These are just the lessons we've learned. And I think they're really vital. And I think if you stick around, I think you'll learn some more and you'll grow with us as well. But you just have to do something. You just have to get out of bed and try and make something of your life and just be proud of yourself.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to be proud of yourself, and you're going to be unhappy. You're going to be not full of purpose, and then you can't really contribute anything positive to the world. And the world doesn't need any more people like that.
Facts. And I think, to be fair, Ash said a couple of really nice like little things that I just want to touch on as we're rounding this up. For a start, the whole thing about growing with us, like, that's really what, well, I hadn't actually spoke to Ash about this, but I think that's what, like, we're not here to sit and lecture people. That's the last thing I want to do, because we're not going to sit here and tell you we know shit. Like Ash just said, we ain't got no money. You know, we're working regular jobs, we're chasing dreams. And that's why when, like, I was kind of thinking about names, I was kind of thinking about something like the Dreamers or something around that kind of thing, chasing dreams, because, you know, we want people to join this community who are also on that same path, and we want to share these experiences with you, want to interact with you and meet like-minded people. You know, you don't have to have made it. Actually, we don't want you to have made it, ideally. We want you to be on the same sort of path as us, rethinking your life and knowing that things need to change and taking action. And I think, like, the final sort of message, just to reiterate what Ash said about the whole thing about life being a fog, I think that's really, really nice. And, like, it's really insightful that life really is a fog. But if you walk through with faith, you'll notice that when you have faith, you truly feel like you're bedecked in clothes. It really feels like a clothing. Like, when you truly believe, whether it's Jesus or whether it's just faith itself in the universe, don't matter what it is, I don't really care. You really can feel it. It's an actual feeling, and it's almost like faith is the torch that can guide you through the fog to the other side.
Definitely.
And it really, like, bro, trust me, this shit, it's serious, and we're not just sat here being dickheads. We wouldn't say it if we didn't believe it. And maybe, you know, there's things for us to learn yet, a lot of things, but we hope that, well, people listen. That would be nice. And sort of, we build this community together and we share information. And, well, yeah, we're kind of looking forward to seeing how this goes.
Yeah.
And, yeah, so, I mean, I guess that's kind of it, but do you have, like, any final comments?
I think we've covered everything for this one.
Right, well,
looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, right, sorry, bro. With that being said, well, that's basically, I mean, we've been sat here for fucking ages now.
Yeah.
I'm knackered.
Work tomorrow.
Yeah, so Ash is going to go, and we're going to get on with life, but we'll be back with another episode probably within the week.
Yeah, maybe Friday.
Yeah, something like that, right? So thanks a lot for listening and respect.
All right, we'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Bye.